You have your Bibles. Turn to Psalm 34. Psalm 34. Lord willing, me and the boys will be going to camp third week in June. Looking forward to that. And the theme this camp is basically to the effect of seeking the Lord in troubled times. Very apt for not only the day we live, but just in general. And so their memory verses will all be in Psalm 34. And so I've been looking at that, trying to prepare, thinking about how I'm going to teach the group of kids I'll be responsible for in Bible study. They gave me the easiest one, first through third graders. Yeah. We're looking forward to it. And so as I've been reading through this psalm and meditating on it, I was struck by the little caption that comes before it. Psalm 34, a psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he departed. So the boys sometimes and I will play Bible charades at night. How can we play a game before bed? Okay, we'll play Bible charades. And so you have to act out a scene from the Bible, and the rest of us have to guess. And so I acted like David, being crazy, scrabbling against the wall, and having spittle on my beard, and they had no idea what I was doing. They thought I was one of the demonics or something from, Gennesaret. Anyway, and so the Psalm 34 is a scene from when David is having a very hard time. And it's kind of easy to just say that at a real high level. David was having a hard time. But I think, and Lord willing, He'll bless us today, it would be worth the time to go look in detail and see what is going on. And so let's do that. So we're going to go back to 1 Samuel. Now we could go straight to that scene and see what happened, but if we just start right there, we're only getting just a real snippet of it. And so we're going to go back to 1 Samuel. Let's go all the way back to chapter 8. So what's in chapter 8? That is when the prophet Samuel, who was the last judge. All right, so just to give us our timeline, Moses and Aaron bring the children out of Egypt. Right, boys? I'll talk to y'all primarily this morning. Moses and Aaron bring the children out. The Lord does. They're leading them. They expire. Joshua leads them in. There's a lot of battles, right? After Joshua expires, who leads the people? Judges, right? Judges. Over the next 400 years, there's going to be a series of judges. Children of Israel are going to disobey. God will raise up a judge after He sent someone to punish them. Philistines or Moab or somebody, they'll be conquered. God will raise up a judge and deliver them. And this is a pattern that goes on for 400 years. Right? The last one of those is Samuel. Samuel is his mother prayed for a child. She's in the tabernacle praying, and the priest Eli is getting on to her. What are you doing in here drunk? And she's like, I'm not drunk, I'm sad. And the Lord blessed her with a child, and she gave him to the Lord. He's the one that would call out to the little boy. He said, Samuel, and he'd go to Eli and say, here I am. Right? That's who we're talking about. He's grown up now. All right, he's led Israel as the judge, and now he's old. So 1 Samuel chapter 8 says, it came to pass that when Samuel was old, he made his sons judges over Israel. All right, so he tried to just pick the judges that were going to be after him. Well, he picked his sons, and his sons weren't good. All right, they didn't follow him. His sons walked not in his ways, but they turned aside after lucre. Remember, kids, what's lucre? Desire for money, greed. Well, these are judges, and they took bribes. All right, so if you go before a judge and say, here, judge, here's $100. Will you rule in my favor? Is that a good judge? No, right? So this is what his sons were doing. They took took bribes, and they perverted judgment. All right. So what did the elders of Israel decide? They gathered themselves together unto Samuel and came unto the city of Ramah, and they said, behold, thou art old. That's real polite, right? Samuel, you're old, and your sons walk not in thy ways. Now make unto us a king to judge us like other nations. They wanted to have a king. Other nations have a king to be the judge. We want a judge. Be like other nations. Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel was very upset. He prayed to the Lord about it. And the Lord answered in verse 7, hearken unto the voice of the people and all they say, For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me. Who have they rejected? They rejected the Lord. All right? That I should not reign over them. According to all the works which they have done since the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherein they have forsaken me and served under gods, so do they also unto thee. Now hearken unto their voice, howbeit ye protest solemnly unto them, and show them what manner the king shall be unto them. So Samuel goes and he obeys. He goes and talks to him. He says, okay, but if you have a king, this is what's going to be. He's going to take the best of your stuff. He's going to take the best of your young men and your maidens and your horses. Everything. It's all going to be his, and it's not going to be real good. You still want them. And they're like, yeah, we want a king. They said, forget all that. We want to have a king, that we can be like other nations, that he may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. Okay? And y'all know who the first king was, boys, right? Saul, right? So David, we're just going to run quickly. Samuel goes and he anoints Saul, tells him he's going to be captain. They gather all of Israel together at one place. Later he would disobey God. We'll talk about that. But he didn't hate him. It was that he disobeyed. Okay? Yep. So he's going to Samuel gathers all the people together in one place. And they draw lots. And it starts with various tribes and down to families until they get to Saul himself. And they can't find Saul. Saul had already been told he was going to be a captain. Well, he was scared. He was hidden among the baggage. Back with the camels and all the stuff they brought with them, he's hiding. So they bring him forth. They say, here's your king. And some people are like, yeah. And some are like, how is this guy going to save us? Right? Well, they all go home. And then they have a battle, first attempt, all right? And Saul gets all huffy, and he takes the oxen that he was with, and he slaughters them. And he says, so it will happen to any man who doesn't come and fight for us. And so they go and they fight and they have a battle. And the people who used to be, upset about him, now everyone's on board. Okay, we've got a king. They're happy about it. And so they're going to go get back together and they're going to renew the kingdom. Basically, it says we're all going to get together and agree this guy's going to be our king. All right? So Samuel, they're all there. They're rejoicing. They're happy. We're up to 1 Samuel chapter 12. Samuel says, all right, I need to talk to y'all a minute. First, let's start off. Have I done anything unjust to any of y'all? Taken anything wrongfully? And I'm paraphrasing. Y'all go read the whole thing. And they're like, no, we haven't. He said, okay. And said, it was the Lord that advanced Moses and Aaron, brought them out of Egypt, right? It was the Lord. Now, therefore, I may reason with you before the Lord all the righteous acts of the Lord, which he did unto your fathers. And he goes and gives them a recap about bringing them out of Egypt, about the time of Judges, and about how he raised up these men and delivered them over and over and over again. It says, but now, you've got an enemy come up against you, Nahash, and you say, no, we want a king to reign over us. He says, but the Lord your God was your king. Okay? So they rejected God. They wanted a natural king, someone they could see. He says, now therefore, behold the king whom you've chosen. I mean, this is a party for the king. He's kind of being a Debbie Downer, right? He's telling them, y'all have rejected God. Here's the king you asked for. All right? Verse 14, if you fear the Lord and serve him and obey him and rebel not against the commandment of the Lord, then both ye and also the king that reigneth over you continue following the Lord your God. You'll continue to follow the Lord if you do those things. If you're fearing God, you're serving him, you're obeying, and you're not rebelling against him. It says, but if you won't obey, and you rebel against the commandments, then the hand of the Lord shall be against you, as it was against your fathers. He says, now, I want y'all to know the severity of what y'all have done. You've done something very wicked. And so he calls on the Lord and says, ask the Lord to basically bring down thunder and lightning and hail. This is a time of wheat harvest, right? Well, that's kind of bad if your wheats come up and you get this massive thunderstorm that just flattens it out. Right? And so God is demonstrating their wickedness. Verse 17, is it not wheat harvest today? Today. I will call unto the Lord, and he shall send down thunder and rain, that ye may perceive and see your wickedness is great, which ye have done in the sight of the Lord in asking you a king. So were they wrong to do it? Yeah. And he's demonstrated. So they could perceive, so they could understand. And so the Lord did send that thunder and rain, and the people greatly feared. And they said, pray for us, pray for the servants, that we die not, for we have added unto all our sins this evil to ask us a king. All right, so listen to this, what Samuel says. He says, fear not. Ye have done all this wickedness. Yes, you have done wrong. Yet turn not aside from following the Lord, but serve him with all your heart. Y'all ever use that excuse, well, I just can't serve God because I've done all this in the past? Ever use that? It's not good. It's not a valid excuse, right? What you've done in the past does not hinder how you serve him today. Okay? Yes, you have done this wickedness. However, turn not aside from following the Lord. Serve the Lord with all your heart. Turn not aside, for then you should go after vain things, which are not profitable nor deliver, for they are vain. What are the vain things? Well, it could literally be idols. It could be pursuing the things of the world. They're not profitable. It could be serving fame or fortune or pleasing men. All those things are unprofitable. They cannot profit nor deliver, for they are vain. Verse 22, what's the reason you have to serve the Lord? The Lord will not forsake his people. Why? Because they're so great? For his great name's sake. He chose a people, natural Israel. He chose his people, the elect. He's not going to abandon them for his own name's sake. But it hath pleased the Lord to make you his people. Moreover, as for me, God forbid that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you. Should I stop praying for somebody when they've sinned? No. Continue. That means just go along with it? Say, oh, it's going to be okay? No. But I will teach you the good and the right way. Continuing to say those hard truths in love, boys. But I will teach you the good and right way. Only fear the Lord, serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider how great things he hath done unto you. But if ye shall do wickedly, ye shall be consumed, both ye and your king. Okay? So this is the big party, and this is what Samuel has the task of getting up and announcing to the crowd. They're all really happy. We've won a battle, right? This king that we asked for, we weren't really sure about him. We didn't know if he's going to turn out well. Hey, things turned out great. We've got a leader who went out before us. And Samuel got up and said, y'all been terribly wicked. However, you can continue to do right going forward and serving the Lord if you'll obey and fear him and not rebel against his commandments. But if you do rebel, Lord will consume you and this king that you've asked for. Okay? Happy party. Right? Fair warning. So what happens? So Saul starts to reign, right, boys? And there's going to be another opportunity, another battle. Okay? This is going to be against the Philistines. There's going to be some garrisons. Now, the Philistines have just overrun Israel at this point. They're like kind of their overlords. So they've got garrisons stationed throughout. Well, Saul's got a son. His name's Jonathan. He's going to attack one of the Philistine garrisons. And what he's going to basically do is stir up the hornet's nest. Like, okay, you defeated one of the little garrisons. Well, then this massive host comes. Like, how massive are we talking? We got 30,000 chariots. Right? Chariots are like the equivalent of tanks. Okay, they're the armored carriers. Okay, and then they've also got another 6,000 men and horses. And then describe the number of men, just regular infantry, people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. They couldn't even count them. All right, so you got 30,000 tank equivalents, another 6,000 horses, and then all the people. That's a big old host, right? Oh, you whooped a garrison. Okay. So, what does Saul do? He gathers everybody together to Gilgal, and Samuel said, all right, wait for me there. And he's waiting. And the people are getting nervous. They see this massive host that they're against. Can't even count them, there's so many. And you know what people start doing? Running away. Some start slinking off. Some say, I'm just going to go to the other side of Jordan. And Saul, seeing his host, his army, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And he's doing this over the course of a whole week. Okay. Now, this is not an amazingly strong army that he has to begin with. You know how many swords they had among them? 2. The Philistines, their overlords, had forbid them from having any blacksmiths in the land at all. Okay, so if they wanted to sharpen their mattock or their goads or their tools or whatever, they had to go to the Philistine smith to have them sharpened. They had a file at home that they could kind of get it going. And so there were no weapons of war. They had their farming implements, and the only ones who had swords were Jonathan and Saul. Okay, so that's kind of your rabble army against this massive host, and you're seeing your people bleed away. All right, so what does Saul do? He says, well, I'm supposed to be waiting for Samuel. Time's ticking. The people are getting smaller. Y'all ever heard the expression, well, we've got to do something. Something's better than nothing. That's kind of a worldly expression. That doesn't necessarily mean true. Sometimes it's just wait on the Lord. Well, Saul's solution is, well, y'all bring me some sacrifices, and I'll just sacrifice it. Samuel is the only one who is authorized, or the priest, but Saul just says, I'll do it. And as soon as he does, Samuel shows up. He says, what have you done? And he said, well, I saw the people. They were scattering from me, and you didn't come at the appointed time. You came the day of. And the Philistines were gathered. So, I forced myself to offer a burnt offering. Right? So he's disobeyed God. Right? You remember back Korah, right? That was the whole rebellion about these people who were not authorized to offer sacrifices, who were taking it upon themselves, saying that we want to have that job. And God said, no. Right? And there's this, the earth opened up and swallowed them down, Dathan and Abiram. Right? And then you had the fire went out for all the guys who had the censers and killed 250 of the popular fellows, right? This was all in the wilderness when they come out of Egypt, right? That was the last time someone had tried to take it upon himself. So here, as the king, wasn't his role. He tried to do it. He's justifying himself. I had to. I was boxed in. I forced myself. All right? And how does Samuel respond? He says, thou hast done foolishly, Saul. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord, which he commanded thee. For now would of the Lord establish the kingdom of Israel, thy kingdom. Let me rephrase that. You've done foolishly. The Lord would have established your kingdom in Israel for forever. But because of your disobeyment, now thy kingdom shall not continue. So I'm telling you, it's going to come to an end. The Lord hath sought a man after his own heart. Ever heard that expression a bunch? Right? Who's that referred to? David, right? The Lord hath sought a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. Okay. Saul has now been told that because of his disobedience, his kingdom would not continue, and God has already picked out the man that he's going to give it to. Now, do rulers like to know that their rule is going to come to an end? No. Is that a little distressing to them? Yeah. All right, so I'm saying all this to try and build this picture of what Saul is and what he becomes. All right, and so, they go on with this battle. The Lord winds up delivering them from the Philistines anyway. He sends an earthquake, and there's trembling and lightning. And anyway, so that battle, they get through that. And then later, there's going to be a third battle. All right? This is when God sends Israel to go fight Amalek. All right? You may not remember Amalek. Remember the story where Moses has to have his hands held up? So his hands are up, they're winning, and they go down, they're losing. They were fighting Amalek. So the children of Israel are out in the wilderness, and the nation of Amalek sees these guys as, easy target, right? They don't have any defense cities. They've got all this gold and stuff that they got when they left from Egypt. Let's go attack them. And so that's what they did. And so as long as Moses had his arms up, they were winning. Joshua was leading the battle, and out there you got Aaron and his brother-in-law Hur holding his hands up. Sit him on a stone, lift his arms. Remember that lesson? Amalek. All right. So the Lord, this is 400 plus years later, says, all right, time for judgment against that nation that came out against my people. All right? The Lord says, vengeance is mine. Is his timing a little bit different than yours and mine? Yeah. So 400 years plus later, because that was a period of judges, 400 years, so now we're into the first king. He sends the king, he says, go fight Amalek. I remember, the Lord doesn't forget, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel. We're in chapter 15 now. How he laid wait for him in the way when he came out of Egypt. Now, here's your instructions. Go smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant, suckling, ox, sheep, camel, and ass. All right. Any confusion in those instructions? All right. Is there anything that's going to be breathing left over? No. Why? Because God said to. Do they obey? No. They go, they fight, they have a great battle. They spare the king, political prisoner, right? And they kill all the stuff that's kind of nasty, right? The secondhand stuff, the spoils, they're not worth it. But the good stuff, they say, we'll just keep this, right? This is over in verse 9. He says, Saul and the people, So they destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. So they killed the people. But Saul and the people spared Agag, that was the king, and they spared the best of the sheep and the oxen and the fatlings and the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refuse, that they utterly destroyed. And then the word of the Lord came unto Samuel. Samuel wasn't with him. The Lord sent a message to Samuel, said, "It repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king, for he is turned back from following me, and hath not performed my commandments." And that was a grief to Samuel. He labored and cried to the Lord all that night. He didn't get any different answer, and he had to get up early in the morning and go talk to Saul. And you know what Saul does is he comes out to meet him, and he says, "Blessed be thou the Lord." "Hey, Samuel, I've done everything the Lord told me to. I have performed the commandment of the Lord." Had he performed it? No, but he sure was trying to frame it that way. "Well, I performed it." And Samuel says, "Well, what means this, the bleating of sheep in my ears? Then why do I hear all these sheep? If you performed it. And the lowing of oxen which I hear." And Saul says, "Well, they brought them from the Amaleks, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice unto the Lord, and the rest we've utterly destroyed." Now, whether that was their original intention or not, he sees that he's in trouble. One, he deflects and blames the people. And two, he says, "Well, okay, yeah, but we're going to do it for a good reason. We're going to give them to the Lord." And Samuel says, "Just be quiet. Stay. And I'll tell you what the Lord has to say." And Saul, probably feeling he's in trouble, says, "Say on." And Samuel says, "When thou wast little in thine own sight," right? When you were so small that you hid yourself among the baggage, "and thou was little in thine own sight, wast thou not made the head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord anointed thee king. Weren't you made the king? And the Lord sent thee on a journey, saying, Go, the Lord sent you on this journey. Go and utterly destroy the sinners of the Amaleks, and fight against them until they be utterly consumed. And the Lord sent, wherefore, why then? Why did you not obey the voice of the Lord, but did fly upon the spoil, and didst evil in the sight of the Lord?" And Saul, defending himself, says, "Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and utterly destroyed the Amaleks, the people. But the people, they took the spoil, the sheep and the oxen, and the chief things which should have been utterly destroyed." He acknowledges it there, right? "To sacrifice unto the Lord God in Gilgal." So, yeah, but we're going to do something good, right? And Samuel said, "Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams." Right? Remember what Samuel told all the people before. Fear the Lord. Obey him. Serve him. Rebel not against him. Here it's you're trying to do something. It says, but it's better to obey than to offer sacrifice. All right? Verse 23, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king." All right, so once he had already said, your kingdom won't continue. Now it's a now. He's rejected you from being king. Okay? And Saul, again, is trying to defend himself. "I've sinned." He acknowledges it. "For I've transgressed the commandment, thy words. Why did I do it? Because I feared the people and obeyed their voice." Who should you fear? Men or God? All right? He's got his priorities out of whack. "Now therefore I pray, pardon me, turn again with me, that I may worship the Lord." Samuel said, "I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king over Israel." And as Samuel turned to go about, Saul lays hold upon the skirt of his mantle, his clothes, and it rips. All right, and Samuel turns around and says, "The Lord hath rent the kingdom of Israel from thee this day." It's been torn apart. "And hath given it to thy neighbor of thine that is better than thee. And also the strength of Israel," name for God, "will not lie nor repent. He is not a man that he should repent." All right, he's saying God's made his decision, and he's not going to change this one. He's not lying. He's taken it. He's given it to your neighbor that's better than you. All right? So you're king. You've been told not only is your kingdom not going to continue, you've been told it's been taken from you and given to your neighbor, someone who's better, someone that's got a heart after, someone who's got a heart for the Lord. Okay? So, that was the last time Samuel would see Saul. While Samuel was alive, at least. Until the day of his death. Samuel is given a mission. His mission to go to Bethlehem to anoint the new king. Right? It's a secret mission. He has to have a reason to go, because if he just openly goes and says, I'm going to go anoint the new king, Saul would kill him. And so he goes to Bethlehem under the pretense of, well, we're going to have a sacrifice. And he goes to Jesse, the Bethlehemite, and says, show me your sons. And he trots out 7 of them. And he looks at some of them, and he thinks, well, maybe that's the one. He's a good-looking fellow. He's got a good head on his shoulder. And the Lord says, no, don't judge by the outward. I'm looking at his heart. And so all 7 of them, they go on past. He says, well, you got any more? He says, yeah, I got one more, but he's the youngest. I mean, the youngest of age. It's got to be a pretty good age gap there. He's the youngest. He's out keeping the sheep. And Samuel says, well, bring him in. And the Lord says, yep, this is the one. Anoint him. So he anoints David. All right? After he does that, it says, the Spirit of the Lord, this is 16 and verse 13, the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. But what happened to Saul? The Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. All right? So there's going to be this troubling spirit among Saul for, describe the rest of his life. It would come and go at times. And so his servants come up with a solution. It says, behold now, an evil spirit of the Lord troubleth thee. Let's find somebody who's a real good player of a harp that he can come and play, and you'll feel better when you hear it. So they say, okay, provide that man. And then somebody pops up and says, I know somebody. He's a son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite. He is cunning in playing, so he's a good harp player. A mighty and valiant man. So these pictures of the little children's books where you've got David as like a 10-year-old kid. He's already been described as this is before Goliath. He's already described as being a mighty and valiant man, youngest of 8, so maybe not fully grown and filled out yet or whatever, but he's already described as a mighty man of valor, a man of war, very prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. And so Saul says, okay, bring him in. And so that neighbor that was better than him, he's already now invited into his court, and he's going to be the one playing to him, and he'd feel better when the evil spirit come upon him. So David comes, and he makes him his armor bearer. Okay? Now, I find that a little interesting, because the next time it describes this battle, when the Philistines come, he leaves his armor bearer and sends him back to tend the sheep. Right? He sends David to go back to his father's house to tend the sheep, and the 3 older brothers, they're part of the army that goes to face the Philistines. And this is when you've got the scene with Goliath. Right? He comes out and challenges them. Right? And y'all all know that story, so I won't get into it. Well, David eventually comes, and he slays Goliath. And from that point on, Saul doesn't let him go back to his father anymore. Right? There had been a period where he'd go back home, but now he's going to stay with him going forward. Okay? Everybody still with me? And then there's this bond between David and Saul's son, Jonathan. Now, the son of a king should be looking after his own interests, naturally. I mean, that's, if you read anything about the kings of England, I mean, the sons of monarchs are just about ruthless in pursuing their own interests and their own claims and making sure that they're going to be on the throne. Well, you get a great description here in chapter 18 of Samuel of the intense love that God gave these 2 men for each other and how close they were, that Jonathan is going to be defeating his own political interest by his care and love for his brother, basically, David. All right? So, they've had that battle with the Philistines. The Philistines are routed. David comes back into the city, and some ladies come out, and they're singing and dancing. And they're singing, and they're praising Saul, saying, "Oh, King Saul, he's killed his thousands." And you think about those other battles that they'd won. Saul's leading the charge, and and a lot of people dead. They're describing he's killed thousands. And they say, "Oh, David, young, good-looking boy, right? He's killed his 10,000s." Right? I don't know if that was literal, if that was how much dramatic the Philistine army was in this latest battle when they just absolutely routed them, because they all ran away after Goliath failed when he died, and they went and killed him. Or if they're just hyperbole. But either way, Saul was very upset by this. Saul's a little on edge already because he's been told the kingdom's going to go to your neighbor, someone who's better heart than you. The kingdom's been rent from you. So who's he looking for? He's looking for whoever the replacement's supposed to be. Why? Because he wants to fight against God's will and kill him. Right? He wants his kingdom to continue. So this is chapter 18, verse 8. Saul was very wroth at that saying. They've ascribed unto David 10,000s, and they've ascribed unto me but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? He said, well, what's the next level? The next level is he's going to be the king. And from that time forward, Saul eyed David. All right? So Saul eyed David. He looked at him with jealousy, with concern. Right? And it came to pass on the morrow. All right, remember, David has led this great victory. Right? They were petrified, fearing the Philistines. They couldn't go to battle because of Goliath. He's like a national hero. Right? And what does they do the next day? The next day, the evil spirit came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house, and David was playing at one hand, and playing, he's having a bad day with this evil spirit, and he's playing the harp trying to make him feel better. And Saul picks up his javelin and chunks him at him. All right. Y'all got fingers? Hold up a one. First assassination attempt. Okay. Y'all think y'all got problems? We'll see. David has some serious problems. This is the first time that Saul attempts to assassinate him. All right. Hold that one. All right. So that's the next day after the ladies. Saul cast the javelin at him and says, I'll smite David to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence twice. Hold up two. 2 different times he's trying to smite him to the wall with a javelin. All right. And Saul was afraid of David because he saw that the Lord was with him, and he was departed from Saul. All right. So what does Saul do? He says, all right, well, get this guy out of my presence. Right? He's got to be a danger to me. I'm going to send him over here to the army. Right? Maybe he'll die over there. It doesn't explicitly say that here, and so I won't count that as an explicit attempt. We'll get that later. But he makes him a captain of over thousands. You go fight. You don't be around here. Caesar and everybody gets really, upset when you've got folks who are potential adversaries. You don't want them close. They might assassinate you. Get him out there. Get him out to the army. So he makes him captain over thousands. And what does David do? He behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Now, king had tried to kill you twice, personally. And what do? He goes and behaves wisely. He's faithful to him. He continues to serve. Okay? Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. All right? I guess he was hoping he'd be kind of rash or dumb and get himself killed, but here he is, continuing to do the right thing. There was no excuse that Saul could give to just execute him. Right? He was more afraid of him. But what was the upshot? All of Israel and Judah loved David. Why? Because he went out and came in before them. He's going out leading the army and coming in victorious. And so he had the love and favor of the people. And so Saul said to David, Behold my eldest daughter, Merab. Her will I give thee to wife. Only be thou valiant for me and fight the Lord's battles. Y'all ever done anything dumb for a girl? Right? King says he's going to give me his daughter. Only I got to be valiant. Well, what do you got to do on the next battle? Be valiant, right? He's trying to bait him, right? Hold up a 3. I'm going to count that as a 3, right? I will give thee to a wife. Only be thou valiant for me. Fight the Lord's battle. Here's why I'm counting as a 3. For Saul said, Let not mine hand be upon him, but let the hand of Philistines be upon him. Let's let the enemy kill him. They'll do the dirty work. I'll say, give him a little charge. Here's potential wife. Go be valiant. And then they'll take care of it, right? So he's trying to set him up for assassination. David would later do this with Uriah, right, Bathsheba's husband, and he would be successful. Right? And David said unto Saul, Who am I? What is my life or my family in Israel that I should be a son-in-law to the king? Right? And he's very humble about it. He didn't think he was worthy to be a king. But when it came time to give away the daughter, he didn't give it to her. But it turned out the next daughter really did like him. Michal. Let's call it that. Michal. She loved David. And so Saul said, I'll give him her, that she may be a snare unto him. So same plan, different daughter. Assassination attempt number 4. right? But here, we got to be more specific. Valiant's not enough. I need a dowry. You don't have any money. I know you're poor. Here's what I'll take instead. I'll take 100 foreskins of Philistines, all right? It says, you go kill me 100 of the bad guys, and I'll give you my bride. David says, okay, I don't have money, but I can do that. And he goes and kills 200. And he presents them, gives the full tale of it. And the Lord saw that the Lord was with David, and that Michal's daughter had loved him. And he became more and more afraid. So every attempt he has to wipe him out, David comes through with flying colors. The Lord delivers him, and he continues to grow and succeed, and having this great tales to tell of all these valiantry and hero work that he's doing, right? And Saul became David's enemy continually. Right? So it's no longer just kind of this ebb and flow and the evil spirit coming upon him. He was his enemy continually. He said, this guy is a threat. I hate him. I want to kill him. I mean, we've had some folks in our life who don't really like us, I'm sure. I've never had anybody attempt to assassinate me. Particularly not, what are we up to, 4? We're in four attempts. All right? So, he became the princes of the Philistines went forth. All right, so there's going to be another battle. Philistines come out to fight again. And it came to pass that as they went forth, David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants, and so that his name was set much by. So again, you've got another opportunity. David rises to the occasion. He doesn't get killed. And everyone's like, man, you can trust David to do what he's going to do. Right? So we've got a 5th assassination attempt here in chapter 19. Saul speaks to his son Jonathan. Jonathan, who loves David, right? They're close buddies. He speaks to him and to all his servants, saying, y'all need to kill David. Imagine getting that instruction from your father. Yeah, your best friend, he's a threat. Now, Jonathan loved David so much. Did he do it? No, and in fact, he went and told David about it. And then he tries to talk the king out of it. And he does a good job. And the king says, because he's telling him, David hasn't done anything to you. There's nothing he's done wrong. You don't need to kill him. And so Saul relents, all right? And he was able to come back and be in Saul's presence as he was before, right? But then there's another war, right? And David shows himself really well again. And Saul gets really upset again, all right? Evil spirit comes from Saul. This is chapter 9. He sat in his house with his javelin, and David's playing with a harp. What do you think he's going to do with that javelin? Yep. He's going to seek to smite him to the wall. But David slipped out of his presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall, and David fled. So, it's boing in the wall over there. That's number 6, right? So David goes home, right? You know what Saul does this time? He sends messengers after him to assassinate him. Messengers. Let's see what the message. He sent messengers unto David's home to watch and to slay him in the morning. They weren't just bearing tidings. The purpose was to go kill him. Okay? Now, his daughter, who loved him, who loved David at this time, helps him escape. She says, you got to get out of here. You got to get out of here tonight. Here, I'll kind of make up, a fake body-looking thing in the bed with some goat hair, and I'll say they're sick. They can't come in, and they'll get really upset. Anyway, he flees. He winds up fleeing to where Samuel is, over in Ramah. And so Saul sends some more messengers after him. And the Lord deals with his messengers because he turns them into prophets. And so they can't complete their mission because now they've been diverted by the Lord. They're prophesying, right? So Saul says, okay, well, round 1 of messengers didn't work. I'm going to send another round. Y'all still keeping count? What? Second round? And they turned into prophets, right? We're up to 9th assassination attempt. Then he sends a 3rd round of messengers or assassins, where it's up to 10. And Saul gets really upset, right? I assume he gets upset because you know what he does? He says, I'll just go myself. So he goes to Ramah. He's going to kill David because David's there and he's his enemy continually. He doesn't want this guy to have the kingdom. You know what the Lord does to Saul? Man, he humbles him. Not only does he make him prophesy, he makes him do it naked. Strips down, lay down on the ground, night and day, naked, prophesying. So he's trying to battle against the Lord. Okay? So David flees from Ramah, which is where Samuel was, and he goes back to where Jonathan is. And he said, what have I done? This is chapter 20, and, that's his question. Jonathan, what have I done? What's mine iniquity? What is my sin before thy father that he seeketh my life? Surely there must be some misunderstanding, because now we're up to 11 different attempts. Right? We run out of fingers. We've got to switch to toes. Right? To kill me, what have I done? And he said unto them, God forbid, thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will not do nothing, either great or small, but he will show it unto me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. Jonathan didn't know about those messengers. Right? He knew from the previous time Daddy had told him what was going on, but all the messengers and him going, he hadn't told Jonathan. Why? Because Jonathan wasn't loyal to him. He was loyal to David. He was the squeaky wheel or the loose lips that sink ships, right? He says he wouldn't do anything without telling me about it. And so he says, tell you what, I'll talk to my dad. I'll set it up. We'll see if, it's just a misunderstanding, if he's really, intending to kill you or not. And so he does. And Saul, they basically say that we're having a feast. It's the time of the month where everyone's supposed to come and have the feast. And David doesn't show up. And Saul's kind of waiting on him. Like, you're supposed to be here. I'm going to kill him. The first night, he kind of lets it go. The second night, he's like, where is he? And Jonathan pops up. He said, well, he said there was a feast at his hometown and asked for permission to leave. And I said, yeah, sure, that's fine. And Saul gets really mad, like irrationally above board mad. You ever had your parents get way more mad than the situation recalled because there's something else going on? Well, that's what's going on here. And he said, Saul's anger was kindled. This is chapter 20, verse 30. Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, his own son. He said, thou son of a perverse and rebellious woman. He's talking about his wife, right? Jonathan's mother. Do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and under the confusion of thy mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Wherefore now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die. He's saying, my son, you're an idiot. That as long as that guy is alive, you're not going to be king. Your kingdom's not going to happen. You're fighting against your own self. And Jonathan pops up and says, well, wherefore shall he be slain? Why? What's he done? Instead of giving a good answer, Saul takes his javelin and chunks it at his own son. Jonathan, he misses. But Jonathan clearly knew that he had determined to kill David, right? So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger and did not eat no meat. And he went and he had a sign that he'd set up with David to let him know if Saul was really going to try and kill him. And David got the message and he fled. Now, he fled. He didn't have provisions or anything. And that's when he goes to the priest city of Nob. And he comes upon the priest Ahimelech. And ask, need something to eat. Right? Jesus would later reference this when the disciples are getting grief from the Pharisees about gathering some grain and eating it on the Sabbath day. He said, didn't David defame the Sabbath by having the showbread? Either way, so he gets some bread. He gets the sword of Goliath, and goes on his way. Well, there's an Edomite there, land of Edom, who saw what had happened, and because of him, all the priests, except for one in that city, would later be destroyed. Because he goes and tells Saul that they've aided and abetted your enemy. And the people, when Saul says, kill him, they said, we're not going to kill the priest. And the Edomite says, I will. And so Doeg the Edomite kills them all. So it's after leaving Ahimelech and the city of Nob that David flees to Gath. Who's from Gath? Goliath, the champion of Gath. So here, the guy who killed their champion, who's risen up to power in Israel, he's now the son-in-law, right? Son-in-law of the king. Everybody in Israel loves him, now comes to his enemy's gate. All right? What kind of reception do you think he was going to get? Well, he arose and he went that day for fear of Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said unto him, is not this David, the king of the land? That's interesting. They recognized and described him as being the king already. Now, he hadn't been formally made king, but the people loved him. They followed him. What was set by his name? Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing unto one another in dances and saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? That was right after the little battle with Goliath. And David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. He was sore afraid. And what did he do? He changed his behavior before them and feigned himself mad in their hands. He acted like he was crazy and scrabbled or scratched at the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. All right, so he's not going to get a welcome reception, turns out. He pretends to be mad. And then Achish said unto his servants, Lo, see here, this man is mad. What have you brought him in here to me for? Have I need of madmen that he brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Kind of like, do I need a court jester or somebody to be the fool? I don't need that. Get him out of here. Shall this fellow come into my house? And so he's allowed to depart, which is exactly what David needed at this point, right? He had to escape. David, therefore, departed thence, this is chapter 22, and he went to the cave Adullam, right? And when his brethren and all his father's household heard of it, they went down thither to him. Do you think it's very safe to be the father and mother and brethren of a hated enemy of the king? No. So he goes into hiding, and they all come to it as well. And then there's some other folks who start gathering to him. And to everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them. And there were about 400 men. And then he makes provision for his parents. He leaves and he goes to the country of Moab. He goes to the king over there. He says, I got my father and mother here. Can you take care of them? Can you just keep them safe? Let my father and mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you till I know what God will do with me. And he brought them therefore to the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hold. All right, and God's going to tell him to go back to Judah. Don't hang out in the hold. And so he has had time after time after time of being a hair's breadth. Now, he would describe it as just being a step from death. How many did we get up to assassination attempts that were explicitly mentioned? 11? 13? Okay. Those are the troubles that he's been going through when you get to Psalm 34. That took a long time to go through all that, right? Yes. So hopefully you can hang on to that foundation. I'm going to quickly go through this psalm, but I want you to see this man who was after God's own heart, how he focused and what he was putting his attention and energy on versus what you and I just say I, tend to do when I'm having some, in comparison, it's probably just mild inconveniences, barely even troubles. How does it start? Psalm 34. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. I'm blessing the Lord at all times. Even in the really hard times? Yeah, especially in the really hard times. I just came this close to being killed by my enemies and had to pretend to be a madman after having the king that I've served faithfully for all these years, who's my father-in-law, from killing me 13 different times. I'll praise. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise will continually be in my lips, in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast of the Lord. I'm going to celebrate God. Not myself, not my strength, not my victories, not the good times, not wallowing now things are bad. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. And what's going to happen? The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. Who are the men who came and gathered to himself? Those that are discontent, those that were in debt, those that were in distress. These are the humble, right? Those that were pushed down. They gathered unto him and were made glad. Because David's so great. Because his God was so great. Oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. Here's something I'm going to do. I'm going to bless. I'm going to praise. My soul is going to boast of the Lord. It's going to be an encouragement to others. And then what I'm doing here in 3, I'm inviting others to magnify him with me. Oh, magnify the Lord with me. I'm encouraging others to actively exalt God. Not that we can make him any higher, but we can put him higher in our perspective, in our mind. rather than focusing on, this is kind of a hard time. I haven't gone through anything as hard as that. And yet he still, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. Right? Team sport. I sought the Lord and he heard me. Well, if he heard me, I must have been saying something, right? So it's probably talking about prayer. I'm actively seeking the Lord. I'm praying unto you. You know what? He heard me and he delivered me from all my fears. Are we going to have fears? Yeah. Is he going to leave you or abandon you, forsake you? No. He chose you, and for his great name's sake, he's going to continue to be with you. They looked unto him and were lightened. Their faces were not ashamed. When you're looking at the darkness around you, it's easy to feel dark. But if you're looking under the light, that light will reflect off of you. His faces were lightened. They were glistening, and their faces were not ashamed or blushing because they're not dependent on someone who has no power. You're dependent on someone who's got all the power. And then in humility, this poor man cried, and the Lord heard him. Is David saying, I'm just a great guy. Why are you treating me this way? No. He's saying, I'm just a poor man. I'm lowly. I'm humble. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him and delivereth him. That's a nice image. Man, the Lord can send his messengers to encamp around about, to encircle his people, those that are fearing him, and delivers them. Given that, oh, taste, perceive, see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusts in him. So that's an invitation for you and me. Oh, come on, let's magnify. Okay, come on, we need to taste. We need to perceive and see what? That the Lord is good. Are your times bad? Maybe. He's still good. Blessed is the man that trusts in him. Trust in him in good times and bad times. Oh, fear the Lord, ye his saints. Right? That was the admonition back that Samuel gave to the people. Obey him. Fear him. Serve him. Oh, fear the Lord, ye his people, for there is no want to them that fear him. Is he going to provide for your needs? Yeah, Jesus said he would. Right? He knows that you've got natural needs. Seek his kingdom first. Is he going to give you a superabundance of your spiritual needs? Yeah, he will. There's no want to them that fear him. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger. These are strong beasts, but sometimes they go hungry. You watch those Animal Planet shows. Like, oh, is she going to make us kill tonight? Oh, nope, they got to go hungry. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. Who defines good thing? It ain't you. Right? Sometimes there's things that we really want and we really don't have. That may not be the good thing that you need. Come, ye children, hearken unto me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. So not only am I praising, and I'm inviting others to magnify the Lord with me, and inviting them to taste and perceive that the Lord is good, I'm going to teach from the experiences that I have, inviting you, come, hearken unto me. Listen, I will teach the fear of the Lord. Do we teach one another? Do we use the experiences of, look how the Lord has brought me through? Continue to fear him. Continue to serve him. What man is he that desireth life and loveth many days that he may see good? Okay, you desire to see many days, and what do we need to do? Keep thy tongue from evil, thy lips from speaking guile. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. It would be really easy and really understandable in our carnal nature for David to be really upset right now. I mean, he could be having a wonderful pout in this cave, right? And speaking really badly about Saul, and I didn't deserve it, and he's just a terrible lowdown, and we ought to go kill him, and all that kind of carnal reaction. But what's he saying? He says, keep thy tongue from evil. Keep thy lips from speaking guile. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. David is going to have the opportunity to kill Saul later. Right? It's kind of a test. He's going to have bird in hand, right? He's right there. You could stick him in. He would come into a cave, and he could murder him there. And what does he do each time? He refrains from killing someone that the Lord had set up as king. That was not what he was supposed to do. It wasn't right. And so he stayed his hand. He sought peace and pursued it. Each time he would demonstrate to Saul and say, I'm not trying to overthrow you. I had a chance to kill you and I didn't. He's seeking peace and actively pursuing it. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. Remember that. You're going through a hard time, trials and troubles. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, upon his children. He sees you. He knows what you're going through. His ears are open to your cry. You may feel like it's fallen on deaf ears. That's just your perception. He hears your cry. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. At the last day, there will be that final judgment, and there will be a cutting off. And the wicked will be cut off. There will be no remembrance of them. There will be no additional continuation of generations. The Lord, he says, vengeance is mine, he will repay. He means just that. Is his timing your timing? No. It's 400 years before Amalek got it. The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near, or nigh, unto them that are of a broken heart. And that broken means burst. Your heart's burst. He says he's near to you. And he saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. You know what contrite literally means? Crushed to powder. Ever been crushed to powder? Ever had your spirit just that low? Because even in that point, the Lord is still there with you. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. What? I thought if I just serve Jesus, things are going to get so much better. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. You may not like it, but that's the word of the Lord. But the Lord delivereth him out of them all. Is there anything that's going to overwhelm you, sweep you away, and pluck you out of God's hand? No. Do the afflictions seem severe at times? Yeah. You've been tempted to be assassinated 13 times? Probably not. So sometimes it's just a matter of keeping us in perspective. He keepeth all his bones, and not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be desolate. But the Lord redeemeth the soul of his servants, and none of them that trust in him shall be desolate. Not one's going to be lost. How are their souls redeemed? By the Lord himself. That's what he would do when he sent his son to redeem his children. Is David, at the time that this psalm has been written, having a really, really, really hard time? Yeah. He's going to have to, and it's kind of the beginning of his period where he's just on the run. And Saul is going to continue to try and kill him, boys. He's going to basically chase him around the countryside at times, trying to kill him, until eventually Saul and his sons are killed, and David will be made king over Judah. But he's still got years to go. And guess what? He doesn't become king till he's 30. So he's a very mature man in his 20s right now as someone's trying to kill him. Right? He's having a very hard time, but does he have the right attitude? The right perspective? Is he moping and in the mully grubs and just, God, you're being so unmean to me. You're picking on me. It's not fair. No. Through the Spirit of the Lord, he's able to write, in spite of all that, these real life dangers. I mean, I don't think he was exaggerating. He said, I am but a step between death. I mean, one step to the left and you got a javelin wiggling through you as you're speared to the wall. And yet, in spite of all that, he's still blessing the Lord. He's still praising the Lord. He's still encouraging those around him. Sometimes we don't do a good job of that. Sometimes we see someone who's having a rough time of it, and we encourage the pity party. Or we both have our, kind of mutual pity party. Things are just so rough and they're terrible, we just kind of dwell on it, right? Well, what should we do? We should magnify the Lord. Exalt him. Taste and see that he's good. I've sought the Lord. He heard me. He's delivered me. Come and hearken to me. I'll teach you. Give godly counsel and wisdom. Use the experiences that you had. Point to those. Point to the Scripture. Remind them that the Lord is near to those that are a broken heart and saveth such to be of a contrite spirit. Yes, you're beaten down at times. Your physical body, your emotional state, your spirit, you can just be low. Because the Lord's still with you. He hasn't abandoned you. You may not feel like it. He hasn't. This is part of the role of our church. Is that we get to remind each other those things when we need it. Y'all read Psalm 34 this week. Chew on it. And go exalt the Lord. Thank you.